how were disagreements settled in the early church? So I know I kind of like read about Origen of Alexandria, and he kind of had, I guess, like a disagreement where he believed that God was incorporeal. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but how were disagreements like that like settled?
Yeah, it's a good question. So part of it is the process of settling theological questions sometimes goes slowly. We can look back at an issue and say, oh, great. They got this thing hammered up by like 250. And it's like, yeah, but if you were living in like the year 200 and you're like, how has this not been settled? You've got people going around saying crazy things. Why haven't they been corrected yet? It probably felt very slow. We have the kind of benefit of hindsight in looking back. So I'd say this. The church has the ability to come together at ecumenical councils, for instance, and settle major doctrinal questions. But the first time, so you've got the Council of Jerusalem, where you see that happening in Acts 15. The next time the church does that is in 325 at the First Council of Nicaea. So in a lot of cases, it was a much more kind of on the ground, working it out sort of thing, where if somebody said something heretical, you would just cut them off from communion. You would say, all right, well, we no longer consider you a practicing Christian, or we don't consider you a Catholic. And so we don't invite you to receive communion in our church anymore. Or they would be, laicized in some cases if you had priests who were saying something heretical. So a lot of it kind of works out at that more local level, which can work really effectively if things are working well kind of at the local level. But occasionally you'd have these issues arise where there is maybe a question of jurisdiction, for instance. So I know that during the lifetime of Jerome, while he's there in Bethlehem, there are disputes about who should be ordaining priests and who has permission from the appropriate bishop to do that. And all of these kind of important juridical questions can pop up. So whether we're talking about theological issues or just kind of issues of governance, the church has a mechanism by which to solve these things. But if we're imagining it's a simple matter of, okay, here's a problem, I'm going to snap my fingers and everything's going to be clarified, that won't be how it works. It's going to be a much slower, much more deliberative process, partly because more than once in the life of the church, people jumped at the idea that somebody else was speaking heretically, when upon further reflection, they really weren't speaking heretically. They were maybe speaking imprecisely, or more frequently were just using different language. So there was this whole debate about whether Jesus has a divine and human nature as two natures, or whether we talk about one nature in Jesus. And increasingly, I think as the centuries have gone on, what looked like a really clear-cut disagreement was probably a lot more complicated, where what the two sides even meant by the word nature might not have been the same, and that the people saying Jesus had one nature were probably trying to say that he is one person, to use our way of speaking about it. And so you can have those kind of things. So for this reason, I think the church is often very slow in cracking down on false opinions until it becomes much clearer, like, nope, that is definitely, like, you are saying something untrue. And the bad fruits of a bad opinion can become clear over time as well. To give one more example here, I know I'm kind of belaboring this with historical examples, but Pelagius denies original sin, which maybe doesn't sound that bad, depending on what you think about the doctrine of original sin, but it leads him to this place where he thinks, well, we could be perfect if we just tried really hard. So now the denial of original sin has turned into a denial of the need for grace. And that then turns into the idea that Jesus is helpful. He's important in that sense, but we could kind of have done it without him. So now you've gone from this, seemingly less important issue of original sin to downplaying the necessity of Jesus Christ. Now it's clear that there's a really serious, really big problem here. So that's when, when those kind of things bear fruit, and then it's a wicked fruit, the church cracks down much more aggressively there.
Okay.
All right, Noah, you look like you have a follow-up.
Yeah, so it's just kind of like, if let's say they were like to be heretical and they would like be cut off, how would the church try to maintain unity? Like,
Yeah. So it depends. If it's an individual thinker or set of thinkers, they would just excommunicate them. And then the expectation would be you would do penance and be reunited with the church. It's a bigger issue when it's an entire church, like the entire church in Alexandria, say. Then sometimes you have these schisms where entire churches will break off, and those are a lot harder to heal. It's actually much easier to handle the situation when it's one individual or a small group of people. But when an entire church is going astray, that's when things can be really difficult to solve and to heal. That's an ongoing issue where the church is still, in some cases, trying to heal 1,600-year-old wounds, like, for instance, with the Oriental Orthodox, the Coptic churches.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this Catholic Answer, be sure to like, subscribe, and check out our live streams Monday through Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific. Or find the episode after on YouTube, your favorite podcast platform, or our Catholic Answers app.